Trigger warning. The following podcast contains content that may be deeply disturbing. You will hear first-hand accounts from parents and family members who have lost children to filicide, the murder of a child by a parent or caregiver. These stories are raw, emotional, and shared from the perspective of those who have lived them. They include details of unimaginable loss, system failures, and trauma. Please take care while listening. If at any point you need to pause, stop, or step away, we understand. Welcome to Voices Against Filicide. I'm your host, Hope Hooten, a mother who has walked this journey and an advocate turning my pain into purpose. This podcast sheds light on filicide cases, statistics, who these children were, the warning signs missed, and the advocacy being done in their honor, and so much more. Together we speak the truth, honor their lives, and fight for change. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to honor two of the brightest lights I've ever known, my children, Alec and Lydia. Alec with his love for Pokemon and his kind heart, and Lydia full of joy and her love of unicorns. They were more than my whole world. They were joy in human form. Their laughter, their hugs, their imaginations, all of it lives on in me, in this podcast, and in the work I do every day to protect children and raise awareness. This podcast is for them. It's for every child whose voice was silenced too soon. Alec and Lydia, you are my why, and I will never stop fighting in your name. Thank you for joining me today, and let's get right into today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices Against Filicide. I'm your host, Hope Hooten. And today we have a very special episode. I have the founder of Michigan Safe Parents, Geralyn Morris, and I also have a parent who currently lives in Michigan who has been involved with family court, and her name is Nicole Massey. Thank you guys, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
We appreciate your advocacy and your courage in what you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I am so excited to jump right into this episode, and we're going to talk about all things advocacy and what our listeners can do to help with court reform, and specifically court reform in Michigan. And so if anybody doesn't know, I lived in Arizona when my case happened. However, I moved back to Michigan, my home state of where I grew up and was raised after the tragedy with Alec and Lydia. So now I've partnered not with just Arizona to make family court reform, but also Michigan. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So Geralyn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you started Michigan Safe Parents organization?
So our official name is protective.parents.michigan. And I started it after being involved in family court battles for 7 years, trying to protect my children. And I just felt like there was more support needed for others going through that, and didn't want what happened with my situation to happen to other people if it was preventable.
Yeah. And how much positive outreach have you gotten in the organization thus far? What have you been able to do with spearheading this movement in Michigan?
So we have a private Facebook group. It's a support group for anyone trying to navigate family court as a protective parent, trying to keep their children safe. And we have over 250 members. And it's a place where people can go and ask questions, because the whole family court process is so confusing to people, and it's not what they expected when they filed for divorce.
Exactly.
There is so little regard for safety and so little understanding of domestic violence, and the cost involved is not understood. Most people end up in serious debt, bankrupt, and ending up going pro se, where they're representing themselves rather than paying an attorney. And so our group provides a forum where people can ask questions of other people going through the same thing, get support, get ideas on if they need a new attorney in a certain county. They could ask for suggestions. They can ask about if their child needs a new play therapist who was used that was good and understands the domestic violence and coercive control. We post court watcher announcements for people that want observers for their hearings and support for that. So it's a place where people can go to get information, ask questions, get support, and just overall get help with their case and surviving the years in family court while trying to protect their children.
Correct.
In addition, we also do advocacy. So we've been working on Kayden's Law for Michigan for the last 3 years. And we do have some drafts in the legislature right now that are being worked on. We are getting support from that from Representative Stephanie Young. And we are also currently opposing some 50-50 custody bills that have been introduced in the legislature.
Can you explain those to the audience of what that actually means and why we want to oppose 50-50?
Sure. So a 50-50 or equal shared parenting, shared custody is what's being proposed, that there's a presumption of that automatically when you go into family court, that is in the best interests of the child to have equal parenting time, equal custody. And the problem with that presumption is that it can be very dangerous for survivors of domestic violence. So we've often also talked with some domestic violence organizations that have that same opinion, that it is dangerous. And we're working with, meeting with legislators, letting them know that there are issues with this. The whole idea of the best interest factors for the child is that it's supposed to be looked at in terms of each individual family and each individual child and what is best for their particular situation, rather than having this sort of standard default custody plan in place. And domestic violence already isn't understood by the judges, which is part of what the reasoning behind Kayden's Law is, because Kayden's Law contains a section for educating judges, guardians ad litem, and other court personnel about domestic violence, because it's often not understood or addressed in terms of safety issues. And so if you automatically have this presumption of 50-50 custody, we feel like the domestic violence best interest factor isn't going to be looked at as closely, and it's already, we feel like, not looked at and understood enough without that presumption. So we feel like it's just going to make matters worse in terms of child safety.
So you're saying right now, as it stands in Michigan, there is currently no 50-50 law, and that's what they're trying to pass, and that's what we as advocates are fighting against, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Is in the Child Custody Act, there is a presumption of joint custody, but it's not given in any term of
that looks
any
like
kind of percentage.
Correct, yeah. And it was very interesting when I talked to you previously about this. It was quite shocking to me because where my case happened in Arizona, 50-50 is the baseline, and that's what we're trying to get away from as well. So for Michigan to be like, oh, we want to do this, I'm definitely not for that, because that was one of the factors that caused my children to be murdered, was that his parental rights of 50-50 custody came before Alec and Lydia's safety.
Yes, we want the child's safety and the best interest factors, including domestic violence, to be understood and applied before any sort of, presumption of equal custody. Right. And Caden's Law includes all of that, educating judges and other court personnel on domestic violence, coercive control, child safety is the priority in family court. And one of the safety issues that we're trying to deal with Caden's Law is reunification therapy, and restrict that because that's very harmful to children. They're basically forced into therapy and parenting time with the abuser.
Yeah, those are things that we need to get away from.
Those are the things we need to get away from that we're trying to establish with Caden's Law. Yeah. And also to consider past evidence of abuse in custody decisions, because sometimes the evidence isn't really looked at or understood.
100%. I just had a full conversation. I know that my audience knows this because they've heard the episode prior, but I met with Caden's mom, Kathy, and Danielle Pollack, the National Safe Parents Organization, and we did a podcast episode and discussed all about Caden's Law, what happened in Caden's case, and the things that they're still trying to fight for on the federal level for Caden's Law. So it's really great that here in Michigan we're trying to pass this at the state level to make sure that children are safe. And I'm going to switch over to Nicole, and I want Nicole, if you could, share your experience with the Michigan family court system, anything about your case, anything that you're comfortable with, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Nicole Massey. I'm a resident of Michigan in Wayne County, and my case is still currently in the Wayne County family court. I've been going through this for 13 years. I found myself, and that's how I came upon Geralyn, who has been very helpful for me, trying to find people who were going through the same thing that I was. I'm also a domestic violence survivor. And so when you speak about, the abuse transpiring from the victim onto the child, that's really my scenario, my situation. And it was hard for me because until I got in this, I had never seen or heard anything like this. I had never. I've been to court for a traffic ticket and stuff like that, but family court, I thought me being the victim, my son being physically abused, having evidence, having witnesses, that it would be an in and out thing. The judge would believe me, but unfortunately that was not the case. My abuser was given full custody. Until this day, my son is still residing with his dad. It's just been a lot. It's very traumatizing. It's a lot, spending a lot of money. And I was grateful to find people like Geralyn with Protective Parents of Michigan to kind of give me the steerhead to navigate on what to do, giving me a lot of resources. Because like I said, this was completely new to me. Trying to find a lawyer. And in this situation, it's not so much just trying to find a lawyer. In my case, I've been through 13 attorneys, and it wasn't just having so many attorneys because they were bad attorneys. They didn't believe me. Mm-hmm. And that was a difficult part. And so even to this day, I could go on and on. It's still a struggle, and I'm still fighting for my son.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your story. Can you share, I know that the case is still currently going on, but what do you think your judge missed in your case, and why did he give 100% custody to your son's father?
Well, it was a she, Judge Cox here in Wayne County. So my case started off, I was blindsided by this, and I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible because it is a long story, but I was blindsided by, I was basically being set up for this, and I didn't know. One important thing that my abuser did was he kept documentation. It wasn't true documentation. It was stuff that he would falsify, but the court would believe it. We initially started going to court for just any little thing. When I say I was in court every other week, my sons would have on a red sock. He would want it to be green. He would file a motion at first to try to basically prove that I was unfit, but it never would stick. So he would just file motions every week. And so here in Wayne County, sometimes before you go before a judge, you go before the referees. And so each referee would throw it out. I remember one referee telling him, like, get out of here. You're wasting taxpayers' dollars. It was a motion to change my son's daycare because he said they didn't have a playground. Just silly stuff. And so when the abuse started with my son, his mother was the first person to tell me about it. But I said, okay, I'm just going to keep a journal because I know going through this, one of the main important things is to keep a journal. It's really helpful. But then the teachers started expressing their concern about the abuse. And then my son started showing up to school every Monday. It was a pattern with these bruises. To make a long story short, I found as a victim, when you claim abuse, instead of you getting assistance or help, it made me the bad guy. You know, it put me in a different light. Everybody said that I was lying. I was coaching my child, and even on several situations where I wasn't even present. And so when the judge got ready to score the factors for the best factors, she intentionally gave the father points. So for example, if the category was education, I'm an educator of 27 years, did all type of educational things, proving my case to be so, but she gave him the point. One of the categories was religion. I had my son in church, put him in a Christian school. I mean, I could go on. She gave him the point. So that was initially one of the reasons I lost custody. Another reason, they put my son on 15 milligrams of Adderall at the age, I want to say he was 4, about to be 5. And I didn't agree with that because as a teacher working in special ed, working in education, the process was not correct. I didn't agree with the process in which he was tested. So she put in her final order that I refused to give him the medicine, even though I was ordered to do so, and recorded and submitted to the court. So that was false. In addition to, she stated that I was coaching my son to say he was abused.
Yeah.
It's a lie. I'm sorry.
No. All of these things are like reflective in my story, and I want the audience to understand that, yeah, when you are somebody that's in a domestic violence situation, you are often, cast in a bad light, and you think that they would believe us, but they don't. It's used against us.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. In my case, the judge used the fact that their father took them out of school without me knowing, and then the fact that I couldn't get them back because I didn't have legal rights to do so because we had no custody agreement. The judge used that as, oh, well, she was okay with him having the kids. No, I wasn't. I just didn't have any legal recourse to get them back because he still had rights over them. I was scared for their safety and I wanted them back, but according to law enforcement, I couldn't do anything. So they use what was meant to protect our children sometimes against us, and that's not okay. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
In Michigan, one of the best interest factors that's often used against victims of abuse is the friendly parent factor, as they usually refer to it, where you're supposed to cooperate and encourage a relationship with the other parent. And if you're claiming the other parent is abusive, the judge looks at that in a negative way, that you're not being able to co-parent. And the other issue is that the judges and court personnel often label high conflict as the problem rather than abuse. But we know from research that
That's not true.
anything labeled high conflict is most likely post-separation abuse.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. There's so many things that we have to work on. I talk about often it's a mountain to climb, and we have to do one step at a time. It's not like we can wave a magic wand and have everything the way that we want it in legislation with the laws that need to be put in place to protect children. But as long as we can do one step at a time and try to walk towards that goal, it's better than doing nothing and staying where we currently are. So, yeah. I also was wondering, because you guys are in Michigan, and you've been advocating a lot for Brandy Morey polls and Rowan Morey and the Rowan Act. What have you played in that legislation?
I haven't been involved in the legislation itself that much, but I've been supporting Brandy in her journey. When I first heard about Rowan, I went through several channels to try to contact her and bring her into our group for support. And she's helped us out with Family Court Awareness Month, which is one of our campaigns that we do in November every year to bring more awareness to the whole family court situation. And then we've helped promote Rowan's Act, and we have what's called a rally starter where people can go onto a website and very quickly send emails of support for different legislation or opposed legislation. And we did one in support for Rowan's Act. It did pass the House, and now we have one to try and get support for it in the Senate. And then we also have a rally starter currently to oppose the 50-50 equal custody bills in Michigan.
And how can the audience that's listening that lives in Michigan, how can they, or do you have to live in Michigan? Can anyone do these rally starters in pro, getting the Rowan Act passed and in negating the 50-50? How do people get a hold of those and do that?
So I can include the links in the information for the podcast. And the website is just rallystarter.com. And if you search for Rowan or 50-50, ours will pop up. And we do ask for Michiganders to fill it out because you do have to put in your zip code. And we have heard that some of the state senators and reps do check that to see if it is Michigan people that are supporting it. Although we have also had some national organizations like Danielle Pollack and the National Safe Parents Organization support or oppose these bills. I just did a letter from our organization, Protective Parents Michigan, to support Ethan's law in Georgia to restrict reunification therapy. So if anyone belongs to a national or state organization and wants to send emails, we would appreciate that as well. But I will definitely send you the links for both of those email campaigns.
And that's something that they can really do, and it's super easy. And it's definitely something that we will do for the child safety laws in Arizona, especially the Alec and Lydia Act. We'll have one of those as well. So it's very important. I get that question a lot from my followers and the audience that listens to the podcast. How can they really help? And that's one of the many, many ways that they can help. So,
and Family Court Awareness Month is a national initiative. November is Family Court Awareness Month. That was started by Tina Swithin from One Mom's Battle. And it's to promote a family court that is trauma-informed and educated on domestic violence and supports child safety and custody decisions. So we contact in Michigan city council members and county commissioners and the governor and ask them to issue a proclamation declaring November as a Family Court Awareness Month in their community. We send speakers out to the city and county meetings to speak about Caden's Law, Rowan's Act, why judges need to be educated on domestic violence. And it's just an amazing outreach program, bringing awareness to the communities, to the elected officials. And the governor issued the proclamation this year for the whole state of Michigan, as well as 47 other communities in Michigan.
Oh, that's great. And we're kind of talking about communities and different counties in Michigan. And I know I've heard this from other people that I've had on the podcast. With the way that family court is even run per county, is different in everything. And I know that you were talking about in your case, you're in Wayne County. So how is that different? Have you heard of other stories that aren't in Wayne County, and how you were treated versus someone else?
I think a lot of what's going on now in Wayne County, and we've been trying to fight this and bring this up as well. A lot of family court hearings are still via Zoom. So whereas before family court was public, you can go into a courtroom and, be a witness or show support. Whereas now, I know I had a case and the court watchers were coming on. The judge wouldn't allow them to come in. So that's one thing we're trying to change because COVID is over. And many of the courts here in Wayne County have resumed in person, except for family court. It's still Zoom.
All of it is Zoom.
If you want to do an in-person hearing, you can request it or your attorney can request it, but it's very rare. Most of them, and I know my experience since I've been going through this since COVID, have still been over Zoom. And every time someone tries to come in, even aside from the court watchers, it may have been some of my family who would have normally been in person. They've been denied entrance.
Oh my goodness. And that's illegal. It's an open hearing. They're supposed to be available to go. And I want to make sure that the audience and the listeners know that, as we talked about that when we had Kathy on, Caden's mom, is they might tell you that you're not allowed in those courtrooms and those hearings for family court, but you are. It's a public hearing. You can go and support and, just be there and be a person of support. And so that's your right to do that. So please fight back if anybody is saying that you can't do that, because you can in every state. It's not just a Michigan thing or Arizona thing. It's in every state.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have you heard anything, Geralyn, as far as the differences in the counties and how family court handles it versus, like, let's say we're on the east side of the state, I am, and versus the west side of the state, like Grand Rapids area? Have you heard anything like that?
The only thing we really hear is about specific counties being worse than others, or
I heard about that.
Specific judges. It seems like we hear a lot about Kent County, Wayne County, sometimes Ottawa County.
Yes.
There are certain ones that have a reputation. I don't know if it's entirely based in fact or opinion. If it's more so every county has problems and specific judges are better or worse than other judges.
Yeah. And so you're seeing the judges in Michigan kind of do the same thing that I went through in Arizona, where they're kind of not looking at evidence and they're not doing the things that they need to do to keep the children safe. And they're kind of ruling in whatever they want to rule on. There's no standard procedure. Is that correct?
Yes, I know in my case that was, I had an abundance of evidence, even teachers who came and testified, even my child's therapist, and her testimony was disregarded because the other party, which was the dad, claimed that he wasn't a part of the therapy. The judge disregarded her testimony, and it was so unfortunate because as a mom, I had did so much. It's hard to get a therapist or a doctor to testify without paying them, whatever. And this lady was committed to helping my son, and they wouldn't accept her testimony. And so that's the thing I think that is huge as well. It's not just so much ignoring evidence. These are processes and then sometimes laws, like with the education I was talking about, my son being tested. these are state process and laws that should be followed.
And they're not being followed.
No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And so much is up to the judge's discretion. Several cases I'm aware of where there was no evidence of physical violence in regards to the abuse. It was coercive control, psychological abuse, financial abuse, etc. And the judge just decided that the domestic violence best interest factor did not apply in that case because there was no physical abuse. I've heard judges say that it wasn't real abuse. And as far as
crazy.
Yeah.
What's considered real abuse? Like,
you can't see it. It's no.
Yeah, there was no domestic violence incident report, photos of bruises, x-rays of broken bones, things that they could tangibly look at and see.
And I had that.
Oh, I did too. Mm-hmm. And they still didn't care. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your expertise and your story. Nicole, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for being open and honest and vulnerable, especially because you're still going through it. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are scared to speak out, especially when they're going through it, because they don't want it to be used against them. So I sincerely appreciate you doing this.
No problem. I feel like if I can just say this, you have to speak out, because if it's done in silence, and that's what I encounter, people who want to help, but nobody ever believes me because they've never heard of it. So I think if we keep being silent, keep it being private, nobody is aware of it. I have to be able to speak. I got to be a voice for my child.
100%. And what advice, Nicole, would you give someone besides speaking out if they need help and they're listening right now and they need to get support? What would you recommend them to do?
Joining organizations like Protective Parents Michigan, One Mom's Battle, following you on Instagram, different people who have experienced it. Because I will say this, I love my friends and family, but until you meet a mom or dad who has gone through what we've gone through, people just don't get it. So they can advise you sometimes to do things out of emotions when we have to make decisions for ourselves and for the best interest of our children, but they don't get that. So follow those awareness pages. Also, don't be afraid to share information that's helpful to others. Don't gatekeep. If you know it's a therapist that's at a good rate and can help someone else, share that information so that everybody can use it. Be resourceful. Yeah, but definitely join those support groups. They really do help.
Perfect. Geralyn, do you have anything to add?
I'm going to add National Safe Parents Organization to that list, because they have advocacy groups for each state that you can join to try to connect with people in your own state and work on legislation or just get advice from people that are in your area. There's also a national anonymous family court survey that hopefully the data will help all of us in all our states, and that's projectjusticeusa.com.
Perfect.
In addition, they have a mind map where you can report like who your judge was, who your guardian ad litem was, who your reunification therapist was, and connect with other people that have had those same professionals involved in their case.
And I do want to let everyone know in the show notes of this episode are all of the websites and links for all of the information that have been talked about in this episode. There is the website that you can go to for everything. And there's emails as well if you want to get in contact with Geralyn as well for the Protective Parents Michigan. So my last question is... we know that filicide happens in every state, and we know about Brandy Morey Poles and Rowan Morey in Michigan. Are there any other filicide cases that have happened in Michigan besides Rowan Morey?
We've had 39 Michigan children murdered during divorce or custody battles since 2008.
So that shows you right there, everyone, that it's not just, Rowan is a big case because it's currently happening, but yes, it happens a lot. Go ahead, Geralyn.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Did you have something to add? Sorry.
I just want to say, unfortunately, we do have another mom involved in the group that has helped advocate for a domestic violence court in Kent County after her son was murdered in that area of Michigan.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for participating in this podcast today. I so appreciate both of you. And thank you to my listeners. If you are interested in this episode, if it piqued your interest, please go and see those show notes for more information. Please share this podcast with anyone and everyone to spread awareness of what's happening in Michigan. And please make sure that you listen to other Voices Against Filicide episodes, and make sure you leave a 5-star review and a rating as well. Also, I will see you next time. This is your host, Hope Hooten, for Voices Against Filicide. Remember, be kind and always abound in hope.